Hello, and welcome to the Proving Grounds. Today, we're having a bit of a zombie infestation as a supposed remake enters the arena. Resident Evil 2 Remake. More, I would think, a reimagining, because a remake, to me, would mean it's being more faithful to the game that's being a remake of, well, a reimagining would incorporate changes, and there are changes indeed. There is no tank mode or anything. This is a third-person affair, so if you were hoping for a return to form, as many long-time fans have hoped for, well, you're out of luck here. However, it's not the end of the world, as the game is really good and returns to the more survival aspects at a more slower and terrifying pace as the more quick-to-action take of Resident Evil 5 and 6 do. Now, I do have goods and bads about this, so when it comes to the third person, this is really good. Like, honestly, I have not found any of the third-person games to be that terrifying at all, or very survival aspect as this one is. So this is definitely mastering the more survival aspects of the game. But some problems I have are, well, as someone who likes, games to stay more faithful usually when you're redoing them, well, there are some differences. Minor differences that are more forgiving, or rearranging the Raccoon Police Department a bit. It is overall pretty faithful, but there were some minor changes in additions, adding bathrooms to give it a more realistic touch, moving the statue that's more famously known to be in the front to the back of the room, and a few other minor changes. But overall, it works, and you'll still find many familiar places if you're familiar with the RPD, as in Raccoon Department, the Raccoon Police Department in 2, the moments you get to go into it 3, or in Outbreak Foul 2, you'll find many recurring rooms that you remember freshly at the same time. Something I really didn't like was the change in everyone's personalities. I think Marvin's the only character that really benefited from this because, well, Marvin really didn't have much to offer in the original game. Small line, and then you meet him gone. Everyone else is changed for either bits too radical. Like, I felt like Leon and Claire were a lot more down to earth in the original. And, I don't know, like, Claire turns into this badass when she's just a citizen, which is kind of odd considering, the military, highly trained task force, the police, they all die. And I know that's bringing up the classic, oh, you're complaining about regular citizens living. No, I'm just complaining about how personality really turned into this, I'm a macho badass. Leon stays mostly tame, but there's also this kind of weird flirty kind of thing going on between Claire and Leon that I find kind of distracting considering their situation. Kind of odd. Their interactions are also incredibly minimal compared to the original. And in the original, they were pretty minimal. A few radio calls and a few encounters, but they were even more minimal where you get one encounter, one television conversation near the end, and 2 notes. Yay. So much for character building. But Marvin did benefit a lot from this. Annette, they really changed Annette. Well, Annette was a workaholic in the original. She did deeply care for a child and did drop her work the second she found out Sherry was in trouble. In this game, it's like, oh, yeah, Sherry, okay, I love you, but, a workforce, I don't know, I just felt like that was kind of unnecessary. But that be just me. But more into the gameplay, so as I said, it's a third-person affair, but there are some recurring elements from past games. Gunpowder from Resident Evil 3 returns, where you can make extra ammo and get a little choosy on what you want to make. Do you want more shells? Do you want more handgun? Do you need some submachine gun grenade rounds? What do you want? What are you selling? What are you mixing? On top of that, there's also windows that can be broken in certain parts of the RPD. Now, this aspect is kind of a returning idea, kinda, from the original. In the original, there were 2 hallways where windows would meet unfortunate circumstances at some point in the game. Now, if you didn't do anything, bad things would happen. But you would get a choice to seal one side of the hall's windows. In this game, that's completely removed and changed up for boarding up certain windows. You'll find planks that you can board up windows, preventing zombies from coming in. If you don't do this, more zombies can be added to your all-way population in the RPD. So it's very important to board up some windows, but it's also important to note, similar to your choice in the original game, what areas are you going to be returning to and going through, and what areas are you going to come through once and never come back again. Your choices are important, for your window boarding is limited. On top of that, there are a few new differences, like there was no crossbolt, which is odd, considering that's what Claire started with, if I remember correctly, and Leon, if I remember correctly, can find it much later in the game. The crossbolt is completely missing, and there are a few extra guns Clara gets. She actually gets way too many guns, actually, oddly enough. But there are a few other additional things. You have sub-weapons, like in the original remake, with your knife, flash grenades, and grenades. Now, something odd they did with knives is knives have a limit of use. Now, what's odd, as far as I can tell, using them on the environment doesn't eat them up. But if you find a zombie body and you constantly slash that, it will slowly actually degrade the knife, which is a bit odd, even if the enemy is dead. But as far as I can tell, hitting the environment does not cause it to degrade. But it is very, very, because, well, your knives break. Your last form of defense in older games, if you ran out of ammo, also degrades, meaning you can end up in a situation where you literally have nothing. And I find that a bit of an odd choice, honestly, because I know most people, while most people can't actually legit play through a Resident Evil game using the knife, it is something that can work and people have done on hard difficulties. So it is something you can legitimately use in your time of need. And, well, you can't if they're all broken, so, it leaves you into a sticky situation. It also really puts more thought on whether you're going to kill shit or not. Because unlike the original, well, enemies are trapped in the rooms they're in, things can follow you throughout certain areas. While there are visible, safe areas that zombies can't come into, these areas are a bit odd, in my opinion, because they kind of break the immersion of the game. And the same thing with Mr. X. Mr. X was an enemy that appeared only in the second playthrough of the original game. He's in both playthroughs of the game. I feel this is an odd change because, honestly, the two playthroughs have very little different now. Like your choice on the side packs and the machine gun, gone. Both characters get the side packs and they have their corresponding weapons during their playthrough. Mr. X appears in both, and he also is affected by invisible safe walls, and it is very strange. Personally, I think they should have did something like Outbreak, where you could hide in lockers or maybe under certain beds or some kind of furniture to evade certain enemies. I think that would have been a lot more realistic and a lot better looking and believable, as opposed to running in some random room, Mr. X walking up to it and then immediately taunting, even though he knows you're, well, at least he should know you're in there. But that's a more minor complaint. But that's just me. I just find it weird a PS2 game could do it, but we couldn't do it on a PS4 game. But again, that's just me. On top of that, they added some new mechanics to orbs. Now, blue orbs were considered some of the most worthless things in the game, because usually there's only a few enemies that poison you in every game, and if you're not dealing with them, blue orbs basically carry no significance. In Outbreak, they did something interesting where a character named George could change orbs into pills and change their effects. And this was an interesting forced move of making different orb types have different effects, where you could turn green to cure poison, blue to heal. So that added some plus effects, but what Remake does is mixing a red and blue orb together give a defensive buff. So if you mix a green, red, and blue orb together, you get poison resistance and cure poison. You get a defensive buff that makes you take less damage, and a full heal, making mixed combination of orbs vastly more valuable than med sprays, which used to be more valuable, being complete heals. Now you get a stats buff and immunity to poison for a little while. And this is a very helpful item, making them vastly more cherished than med sprays now. And that's a very good thing, because there are all even less things that poison you in the remake, because they removed spiders, oddly, and changed the plant monsters to a one-hit kill enemy, which kinda sucks if you're running low on stuff, especially the flammable kind. But there are no giant spiders that poison you, so poison is a very, very small minor thing, incredible minor. And I think that's about all the general gameplay changes, really. I mean, the safe codes and stuff still exist, while oddly they don't change as far as I have noted, which is a bit of an odd thing, because, I mean, that's good for, like, speedrunners, but, you know, if you know the codes, if you're good at memorizing them, you can just basically get all the goodies and right at the beginning of the first encounter with them in the second playthrough quite easily. The only thing that I noticed that changed were the medallion puzzles solutions changed. So that was a bit of a odd. So something else minor that gripe about is the story change. So, you know, you come here hoping for help and you end up trying to find a way to get out. So they added a more of a motive on finding to get out. So they took a bit from Outbreak File 2. Now, Outbreak File 2's scenario in the RPD is where one of the characters, you're basically looking for a secret passage that's underneath the statue. She escapes, gets help, and everyone escapes except Marvin, leaving him to his fate that would happen in 3 and 2. Now, they took this and ran away with it, and it's kind of weird because it pays homage to other things, like the cast that's in that stage. Elliot, I think Elliot, David, George, and Officer Wyatt, who is the one who goes and gets help. They're all mentioned in this, and they even have notes. They're on their desks with their names and stuff. But the passage is completely different and goes to a different place, so it kind of makes the canonicity of it kind of confusing. Honestly, if they try to say this is the new canon Resident Evil 2, they're just making a big old mess, honestly. Because Capcom did say before Outbreak is canon, they just never said what scenarios are canon. And it's not even Outbreak that's the main problem either. There are other little bit issues with other plots and that if they were to make this canon. But that's going in a giant Nordland, and I'm not going to let you sit through a giant Nordland. But I just want to throw a little minor thing. I find it nice to try and include the other stuff. That's good, but at the same time, they cause, you know, negative effect. Like, they move the statue, so that always makes things confusing. But anyway, Nordwage gone. Away with you, Nordwage. Away with you. Away with you. Now, Mr. X chases you through the facility because everything is loaded. There's no loading screens between rooms. That everything is loaded up and you just go through. All the doors are unlocked or unlocked doors and stuff. So for the most part, most enemies like Mr. X can follow you through a good chunk of the police station. But like I said, there are safe areas, and I just feel like they could have done some kind of hiding thing to make that seem more better, because it just seems weird. Because especially you're basically encouraged to look for them. Because, you know, when Mr. X is chasing you, you need to lose him. And to lose him, you get to a place that's safe. And you get a place safe, he walks away, looks somewhere else, and you go hope along your day and hope he doesn't find you. Now, something that is interesting, zombies actually, and including Mr. X, can pay attention to sound. Mr. X especially. Zombies are a lot more minor, but Mr. X can hear gunfire and you running. Basically, to hide from Mr. X, you basically have to walk. Because he is slowly attracted to your running, and he is directly attracted to your shooting. And Lickers do return in this game, who are also dependent on healing, and they are very sensitive to healing. It's actually kind of interesting to mess with them. Like, you can shoot somewhere, and they kind of get attracted to the location it went to sometimes. But the one thing that's kind of annoying about the Lickles is in the original game, Lickles basically had a path, so you could kind of find a way to go around them. I find it, well, the ones in the remake don't really move very often, so you're either forced to wait a really long time hoping they'll move a bit, or you're going to have to do something more clever or risk running or walking near them, because just like in the original, getting too close, they become alerted. There are also a few encounters where it throws an all-way alerted Lickle at you. These moments have their ups and downs. Some people consider them cheap. Other people think they were just, a random extra challenge part to deal with. I'll let you be the judge. Depending on your loadout, it can be easy to deal with or difficult, especially difficulty. Another minor thing I thought was kind of weird is I kind of wish they gave an option to turn ink ribbons on and off for all modes, where they're only available in hard mode. See, if you're not familiar with the original games, you had ink ribbons that you needed to use to save. Now, they made this exclusive to hard mode. Now, how it did it with the difficulty in the older games is basically you would get more ink ribbons the easier the mode was. And I feel like they should have did something like that, or maybe at least made easy where you had infinite. Because I just felt like there wasn't enough pressure on you in standard, and I'm not really good at hard modes and survival horror games. I'm one of the people, I want most of the shit I see to stop moving, not one of those dodge 99% of everything and occasionally maybe kill one thing. Not that good at these kind of games, but that'd just be me. Overall, though, the game's pretty good. It has a few extras. You can find little Mr. Raccoon statues based off the Mr. Raccoon icon from the Outbreak Zoo level. Another nod to Outbreak. There's an odd number of little nods to Outbreak, oddly enough, considering it's a game. Like when they did that thing about the new game that's being kind of like Dead by Daylight. There was a quiz thing so you could enter in the beta, and none of the choices mentioned Outbreak at all, so it's kind of odd. Honestly. But anyway, there was also free DLC storylines of what-if stories of characters who die, and there's also lots of pay-for DLC, which is something a lot of people grumbled about, and I'm sadly with that. Like, the older games had a lot of outfits. You don't get too much unlocked in the base game. You have to pay for most of them, though they did give you retro models for free, which I played through the game. As you can see, I like them way better than the Uncanny Valley models they made for most of the characters. Like I think Marvin's the one that turned out the best. Most of the other characters look really Uncanny Valley in their models, especially Clara. I just don't know. Something about those cheeks just terrify me. They terrify me. Now, I do feel the ghost stories, they're kind of a challenge mode, because they're just basically, everything is the same, the things you can find in the backpacks and the vending machines. It's just essentially a find out what you're going to deal with in each part of their particular stage, what things that'll meet your playstyle to deal with the situation, and try to get to the end goal of each of the ghost stories. Each one's harder than the last. There are 4, you only get 3, and until you beat those 3, you'll get the 4th one, which is just one gigantic battle royale surviving game, you versus zombies, in a small little room, and it's just chaotic. Other than that, for the game itself, you do get 4th Survival and Tofu mode, and unlike the original Resident Evil 2, Hunk is unlocked by simply beating the game, as opposed to needing a really good rank, which is nice. Now, Hunk's mode is a little different. I believe in the original Hunk mode, you could find items in the environment. Apparently in Hunk mode in the remake, there are no items to be found. There's only you getting to that damn rooftop to survive with everything you have in your inventory. It's a pretty fun mode. I've gotten to the 2nd floor of the Raccoon Police Department so far with him, and it's pretty tough. You gotta make use of your guns and be smart about how you deal with the things in front of you. Definitely something I'm still going to try for, because I never got to play the original Hunk mode because I couldn't get unlocked. Anyway, it's almost like I have a grudge though. Overall, though, probably the biggest complaint I have with the remake is that the two playthroughs are so similar. The only things that are really different is Clara and Leon both have a final path boss before doing the true boss you get from beating both paths. That's always the same. But I mean, they both have their individual boss, but for the most part, they do almost all the same shit. And it feels less unique because Mr. X is in both of them. Well, in the original game, he was in the second path only, and you don't have the choice of the side pack. Like, I understand giving everyone side packs because they made more items and stuff and made things take different amounts of slots and stuff. So I kind of get why they gave both characters side packs and that. But it would have been interesting to still have something that acts that choice where you could leave it both for the other character, take one item and leave the other item for the other character, or take them both and leave nothing for the other character. It would have been nice to have something like that to just make it a little more interesting. But with Mr. X in both playthroughs, fortunately nothing really different. The only big difference, honestly, besides the few little encounters they get differently, is that the second character arrives at the RPD. They don't have a street running to the police department, and they arrive like an hour after the first character has. So it's just, I don't know, I just feel like it doesn't feel as meaningful. It feels more like they could have just simply did something like Resident Evil 0 where you swap between characters, or that you could just have trigger points where you switch between Leon and Clara in the same playthrough itself. It just feels like it's more of a time waster in this than it was in the original, and it's a shame because, you know, in the original it wasn't even that much different outside of Mr. X. But now there's nothing too unique about him, so it's just replaying the game almost, essentially, just as a different character and having a different loadout of weapons. Weapons are still unique, like Leon still gets a shotgun, Clara still gets a grenade launcher and that. So there are differences in that regard, but I mean, like, you know what I mean? There's just nothing unique enough to make it more feel better. Well, you'll still have fun, don't get me wrong. It's just, I feel like while this was an opportunity to make them more interesting, they took a step back and made them less interesting. And I just feel like that was, I feel like that's just, I don't know. Overall, though, what do I overall think about the game? Fun game. It's still good. It's definitely a step in the right direction for the third-person-esque type Resident Evils. It's nice revisiting familiar locations and that. And they really actually expanded, speaking of the locations, they expanded on the sewer. The sewer was a small instance. Sewer is much bigger now. It's much more of a level. It's actually, I think it's actually a decent change on that front. The laboratory kind of went, it kind of reminded me of a laboratory that was in Resident Evil 5. They kind of went like big shebang with it and that. It's a pretty decent little area, that, but overall they've changed it quite a bit. You won't find too much that looks too familiar from the original game in the remake in the labs department. Honestly, I'd say the police department is the best part of the game. I think the sewer was okay. The only thing that sucked about the sewer was they just made the alligator even stupider. I mean, at least there was you had to figure out the trick to easily kill him in the original, or you could just gun him down and not realize there was an easy trick. Instead, they just made it some weird running towards a screen Crash Bandicoot thing, and then you shoot the explosive he gets in his mouth. Just kind of lame. Could have expanded, but oh well. You still do get a segment where you play as Ada and Sherry. I forgot the name for a second. Sherry's segment is completely different, while Ada's, I mean, it's still the moment where Leon's down, but it's also different. You have like a hacking device, hacking electronics to go forward, so it's kind of, I mean, it's different, but it's a little more on point with the story, where Sherry's is completely different, along with Chief Irons. Chief Irons is also very different in this game as well. But I'll leave that for you to discover. Leave some things for you. But overall, it's a really good game. If you've played the original and you're a long-time fan, I'd say go for like $30 value. Well, it's definitely very polished, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say it's not a polished game by saying give for $30. It's just, I would recommend people to play the original still over this, honestly. I really would recommend playing the original. That's just me. You could decry nostalgia or favoritism, but this is a good game still, though. I don't want to take over the canonicity of it. I mean, it just brings new problems by doing that. But it's definitely a game I would recommend fans playing, especially if you're a Newell fan. I think you should play this because a lot of the Newell games are more action-oriented, and I think this is a nice compromise for Newell people to get some more survival horror in their title, while not necessarily doing tank controls, because I know a lot of Newell fans don't like the tank controls of the older ones. Honestly, though, I really wish there was a tank control mode. That would have been a lovely and fantastic add-on to the game. They didn't do. And with the free ghost stories, I feel like instead of doing that, they also missed the opportunity to make a unique, honestly, I think they should have made a stage side story showing how Ada escapes the facility, because they've never done that. I mean, Resident Evil 4, they gave Ada a whole side plot thing explaining what she was doing behind the scenes. I feel like something like that and how she escapes the facility would have been a more interesting thing to do instead of the full ghost stories. But to be fair, they basically just completely reused assets, and they're not. But they did introduce weird new zombies, oddly enough, in those ghost stories, which is a bit odd as well. So they're free, the full stories, but you do have to beat 3 of them to get the 4th one unlocked. So there's still something. They also give you 2 additional trophies with the ghost stories, where you got platinum in the normal trophy list. You'll get most of them playing the game normally, and you got a few hard ones for S rank, hardcore, and all that kind of crap. So I think $30 is a really good deal. I believe this Black Friday it's also going to be $27 for Black Friday, which is a good price too. I wouldn't pay, especially since it's about a year old now. So I mean, you definitely shouldn't buy it for $60 at this point, because it should definitely already be cheaper at most places at this point. But I think $30 is a good price, and if you get it for less, you get a really good deal. I definitely recommend everyone to play the game for sure, but I don't think you should expect it to replace the original. I think you'll find most people will still hold the original to pretty high standards. But overall, while I went into this game being mostly negative, thinking my mindset went in is that I was going to like this. I was going to hate a lot of the changes. There are some okay changes, interesting changes, and some that cause plot hole issues. I know, but those are my thoughts. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment down below. Thank you for joining. Leave a like if you feel like you learned something, and feel free to leave a dislike if you learned nothing at all, guilt-free. Till next time, be safe out there. There's a lot of zombies. Thankful for your flesh.
どうだった？私の作った朝ごはん。感想だよ。感想。そうか。